So in every business, we have to talk about leadership. And there's maybe more books written on leadership than any other topic in the entire world. And so I'm not going to proclaim to be some kind of expert on my particular way of leadership and thinking about leadership is better or more important than those others. I will just take the time to explain to you kind of how I go about it. And I think there's a handful of things that for me, there's a few things that are really vital when it comes to leadership. The first one is, and maybe the most difficult, because we're passionate people, we want what we want, we're driven by our own personal desires and wants and wishes and all those kinds of things, and that can allow us to have a skewed perception on reality. So the first thing I think we have to do as leaders is identify what is the reality of the situation we're facing. So a great example of that is having employees, for example, who you've told to do this thing 53 times. Like you've told them over and over and over and over again, why don't they get it? And what the easy path is to say, they should understand. They should want to do this. They should have this figured out by now. And I would say the first role of a leader in that situation is identifying what is the cause of this? What is the situation? What is the real holdup here? Is it reasonable for me to have this expectation that they just get things? Is it reasonable for me to have this expectation they should just want to do stuff because I want it really badly? And I would argue that's not always the case. So the first thing I think we have to do is identify what is, especially in cases where we're beating our head against the wall over and over and over again, rather than just saying they should or it should not be this easy or excuse me, it should not be this hard, or they should just want to do these things because I've said it to them 100 times. That's not dealing with reality. So we have to deal with reality, and we have to figure out what is. And only once we have an objective understanding of what is, can we then start making decisions to get us where we want to go. So the second piece of this would then be, what's the goal? What are we aiming towards? So once we've identified what is and what the current reality is and what the situation we are in now is, the next thing is, where do we want to go? And again, this is an area that it makes perfect sense sitting here right now having this conversation today, but in the moment, when we want something to be done, we don't always take the time to identify that. So a great example would be, you have an employee calling you and saying, I'm having this problem with a customer. Our general inclination is to just solve the problem. Like, we'll just go do this and this and this and go take care of it. And then we're frustrated when 6 weeks later they call back with the exact same question again. And so in that situation, what I would argue is, let's identify the goal of the conversation. Is my goal in this conversation to solve the problem so they can go quickly take care of it? Or is my goal to educate them and train them so they don't ever have to make this phone call to me again? Those are two very different conversations. What we generally do is we take the shortest path and we solve the problem right now, and then we're frustrated later on when they call back with the same question again. So this is an example where, in my mind, not identifying what a goal is leads us down a path where we just have the same problems over and over. And as the business grows, we have more problems, and those begin to compound, and pretty soon we can't get a break. We can't get away. We can't have any time for our families. We can't do anything except for make decisions and put out fires. And the third thing is, once we've identified what is in our current reality, and I don't mean my truth, I mean the truth, like what is reality, and I've identified what are we trying to move towards, now my function as a leader is to facilitate the behaviors and processes to help us achieve the goal. And those are very different things. So most of us are generally born being really good at relationships or really good at tasks and numbers and procedures and things like that. So identifying which of those two things we're not very good at and putting the effort into shoring that up. So for me personally, I'm a very analytical numbers guy. I think the spreadsheet is the best invention ever made. I'm not naturally good with people. I had to spend 25 plus years developing that skill. And now I can say with little doubt that managing people and leading people is by far my greatest strength. Now, that only happened because I identified that was my weakness, and I put the time into solving that problem. The reason it mattered so much is, if I'm trying to facilitate behaviors and processes, and I'm only good at processes, and I'm not really good at the behaviors, I'm not really good at the emotional stuff, I'm not really good at connecting with people and getting them to want to do things, I'm only good at scripting procedures that are supposed to be followed because that's the way it's supposed to be, I'm going to have a very limited ability to get things done. So in my mind, it comes down to identifying what is, identifying the goal, and then facilitating the behaviors and processes to get us there, which includes figuring out which one of those things is my weakness and shoring up those skills.